I grew up believing that love meant showing up, even when it cost you more than you had. My parents taught me that family always comes first. So, I carried that belief like a rule written into my bones. I was the eldest daughter, the steady one, the one who did not complain. While others chased comfort or left town, I stayed close, working long hours and sending money home whenever it was needed. I thought loyalty was measured by how much you were willing to give without being asked. Our family lived in western Pennsylvania, in a quiet neighborhood where people waved from their porches and lawns were cut every Saturday morning. The house stood on a narrow street lined with maple trees that turned deep amber in the fall. It was not fancy. 2 stories, pale siding, a small front porch with wooden steps that always creaked. The roof leaked every few years, and the basement smelled faintly of damp concrete. My father, Edwin, liked to stand in the living room and say the house was our legacy. My mother, Maribel, called it our safety net. To me, it felt like a promise I was responsible for keeping alive. After college, I moved into a small apartment in Pittsburgh. It had thin walls, old carpet, and a kitchen window that looked straight into a brick wall. Still, it was mine. I paid the rent myself and worked full-time at an underwriting office downtown. The pay was decent but not generous. Even so, I sent money home almost every month. Sometimes it was $620 for groceries. Sometimes it was $2,450 for repairs. I never tracked it carefully at first because I believed love should not be counted. When the water heater broke in the winter, I paid the $4,200 bill without hesitation. When property taxes were due and my parents were short, I wired the money the same day. Over the years, the total passed $137,000. I did not loan it, gave it. I told myself that sacrifice would be remembered, that one day someone would say my name with gratitude. My younger brother, Silas, never paid $1. He lived in the house rent-free, drifting from one short-term job to another. He always had a reason why things did not work out. My parents defended him constantly. They said he was finding himself. They said he needed support. When I felt tired or stretched thin, I told myself it was fine. I was strong. I could handle it. Holidays always fell on me. I bought groceries, cooked meals, and cleaned the kitchen afterward. When the porch railing rotted, I hired a contractor. When the washing machine broke, I replaced it. I drove back and forth from Pittsburgh so often that the route felt like muscle memory. I knew every exit, every gas station, every stretch of road where traffic slowed. I remember one evening sitting at the kitchen table after dinner, sorting through unpaid bills while my parents watched television in the next room. The yellow light above the table flickered. I felt tired in a way sleep could not fix. Still, I paid the bills and placed the receipts neatly in a folder. I believed that keeping things together was my role. I did not ask who would keep me together. Friends told me I gave too much. They asked why my brother was not helping. I smiled and said, "Family is family." I said it like a line I had practiced. Deep down, I believed that if I just stayed kind and loyal, things would balance out on their own. The house felt like proof of everything I had poured into my family. I knew the sound of every door. I knew which floorboard creaked near the stairs. I knew the exact spot in the living room where the paint bubbled each summer. I thought knowing a place that well meant you belonged there. What I did not know then was how quiet exclusion can be. No shouting, no warning, just decisions made behind closed doors. At the time, I still believed that effort equaled love and that love, once given, could not be erased. That belief held me together for years. It was also the reason everything was about to break. The message came on a Tuesday afternoon while I was standing in the parking lot outside my office. I had just finished a long day of phone calls and paperwork, and I remember thinking about stopping for groceries on the way home. My phone buzzed in my hand. I expected it to be a reminder or a message from work. Instead, it was from my mother. "We changed the locks. You do not live here anymore. Stop causing trouble." There was no greeting, no explanation, no call before or after, just those words sitting cold on the screen. For a moment I stood completely still. Cars passed behind me, doors opened and closed, and people laughed nearby. The world kept moving as if nothing had happened. My hands were steady, but something inside my chest felt hollow, like air rushing out of a cracked window. I read the message again, slower this time, as if the meaning might change. Did not. I thought of all the weekends I had driven back and forth. All the money I had sent without being asked. All the times I had said yes without hesitation. I did not feel angry yet. Felt confused. Felt erased. I got into my car and drove straight toward the house. The road felt longer than usual. Every red light stretched my patience thinner. I told myself there had to be a mistake, that maybe this was some kind of misunderstanding that would clear up the moment I arrived. Families argue, I reminded myself. Families cool down. When I pulled onto the street, the house looked the same. The maple tree in the front yard stood still in the afternoon light. The porch steps were clean. The porch light was on, even though it was still bright outside. That detail unsettled me more than anything else. I walked up to the door and slid my key into the lock. It did not turn. I tried again, pressing harder, then lighter. Nothing. I stepped back and looked closely. The lock was new, shiny, untouched by wear. I felt a strange sense of disbelief, like my body had arrived before my mind fully understood what was happening. I knocked once, then again, and waited. No one answered. I could hear the television inside. I knew that sound. I knocked harder. Still nothing. My phone buzzed again. This time it was my brother, Silas. Dad says this is best. That was all. No apology. No explanation. I stood there on the porch staring at the door that had always opened to me and felt something inside me finally crack. Not loudly. Quietly. Like a thin line splitting under pressure. Inside that house were my childhood photos, boxes of paperwork, old letters, and legal mail that still arrived in my name. In the hallway cabinet were documents I had organized myself, including receipts and records I never imagined I would need. I had left them there because I trusted the people who lived inside. I sat in my car for a long time before driving away. I do not remember starting the engine. I only remember the feeling of being suddenly unanchored, like someone had cut a rope I did not know I was tied to. That night, I slept on a friend's couch in Pittsburgh. She handed me a blanket and a pillow without asking questions. When the lights were off and the house was quiet, the weight of the day finally settled in. I cried into that borrowed pillow, careful to keep the sound low. Not because I lost access to a house, but because I understood something I had refused to see for years. My help had been treated like charity, something optional, something that could be discarded once it was no longer convenient. The love I thought I had earned had never been security. It had been permission. And that permission could be revoked at any time. The next morning I woke up before my alarm. The room was filled with early light, soft and pale. For the first time in days, I did not reach for my phone immediately. I lay there and breathed slow and steady. Something had shifted overnight. The sadness was still there, but beneath it was clarity. I stopped crying that morning not because it no longer hurt, but because I knew crying would not change what had happened. I made coffee and sat at the small kitchen table, staring at nothing in particular. I replayed the message in my head one last time, then set it aside. If they thought they could erase me with a lock and a sentence, they were wrong. I had built too much. I had paid too much. I had proof, even if I had never planned to use it. That day, I opened my laptop and began searching through old bank statements and emails. I did not feel rage. Felt focused. Precise. They had closed a door. I was about to open a file. I took 3 days off work and did not tell anyone why. I did not argue with my parents. I did not send long messages or ask for explanations. I knew words would not protect me anymore. Facts would. I turned my small apartment into a quiet workspace and began doing what I had always done best. I organized, focused, I prepared. I started with my bank records. I logged into every account I had used over the past 10 years and downloaded statements month by month. I highlighted transfers sent to my parents, checks written for repairs, and payments made directly to contractors. Each number felt heavier than the last. What I had once thought of as help now looked like a trail. Clear. Undeniable. Then I opened my email. I searched for old messages about the house. There were plenty. Requests for money. Thank you notes sent late at night. Messages about emergencies that needed quick fixes. I saved them all as files and printed copies. I did the same with text messages. Screenshots went into folders labeled by year. Receipts came next. Insurance payments. Property tax confirmations. Repair invoices. By the end of the second day, the total passed $137,000. I sat back in my chair and stared at the number. It shocked me even though I had lived it. On the third day, I placed everything into neat folders and drove to Erie. I had scheduled a consultation with a lawyer named Rowena Clark, recommended by a coworker who trusted her completely. Her office was quiet, with plain furniture and large windows that let in steady light. She shook my hand, invited me to sit, and listened without interrupting. I told her everything from the beginning. The money, the house, the message. She asked me to slide the folders across the desk. She went through them carefully, page by page, making notes as she read. The room was silent except for the sound of paper moving. When she finished, she looked up at me and said something that changed how I saw the last 10 years of my life. "You were not helping," she said. "You were investing." I felt my shoulders drop, like I had been holding a breath without realizing it. She explained calmly that repeated financial contributions toward a property, especially when documented, carried legal weight. Then she asked a question I had never thought to ask myself. "Have you ever seen the house title?" I shook my head. She requested it through official records. When it arrived, the truth revealed itself. Years earlier, my parents had added my name to secure a loan. They had never told me. I had unknowingly helped pay it off. Legally, I owned a share of the house. The court proceedings were calm and orderly. The house was sold for $498,000. After debts were cleared, my share came to $189,000. When the funds reached my account, I did not feel like I had one. Felt released. A month later I left Pennsylvania. I drove east with only what fit in my car. I crossed into Vermont on a clear morning. The house I bought sat near a narrow road with tall trees on both sides. I paid $312,000. For the first time in my life, my days were calm. Silence was no longer punishment. It was protection. Justice did not arrive with noise. Justice packed its things. Justice closed the door. And justice walked away.